The Zalidian Empire ruled over 300 star systems with an iron grip. For thousands of years, no one had dared to challenge them. They were the masters of this part of the galaxy. When they found a new world with life, they gave a simple choice: join us or die. Most chose to live as slaves rather than face total destruction. Captain Alan Morris stood by the large window of the Earthship Defender. His gray eyes watched the strange blue and white lights of hyperspace flow past the ship like a river. The lights cast moving shadows across his tired face. 6 days in hyperspace had given him little sleep. Too much rested on what would happen next. "Coffee, sir?" Morris turned to find Ensign Frank Wilson holding out a steaming cup. The young man's uniform was perfectly pressed despite the long journey. "Thanks, Wilson. Just what I needed." Morris took the cup, feeling its warmth against his palms. "First time in hyperspace?" Wilson nodded. "Never thought I'd see the day humans could travel faster than light. My grandfather worked on the first Mars colony. He would have never believed this." Morris took a sip of coffee. It was bitter and strong, just as he liked it. "None of us did. 20 years ago, we were still arguing about funding the Jupiter stations. Now here we are, about to meet an alien empire." The door to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss. Admiral Olivia Grayson walked in, her footsteps firm against the metal floor. At 62, her hair had gone completely white, but her back remained straight and her eyes sharp. The crew stood at attention. "At ease," she said, moving to stand beside Morris. "Status report?" "All 30 ships maintain formation. Weapons and shields at full power. We'll reach the jump point in 4 hours and 20 minutes. Grayson nodded. "Good. And the package?" Morris lowered his voice. "Secure in the Excalibur. Commander Rivera reports all systems green." "Very good." Grayson turned to the large screen showing their fleet. 30 warships, the best Earth could build, moved together through hyperspace. Each one carried hundreds of crew members, all volunteers. Each one knew this mission could be one way. Lieutenant Susan Ward looked up from her navigation console. Her fingers moved quickly over the glowing controls. "Captain, I've updated our arrival calculations. We can position the fleet directly above their capital city as planned." "Well done, Ward." Morris finished his coffee. "Let's hope our intelligence is correct." The intelligence had come at great cost. For 5 years, small stealth probes had watched the Zalidian worlds, learning their language, their technology, their plans. 3 brave pilots had never returned from placing those probes. Their sacrifice had revealed a terrible truth. The Zalidians had found Earth and marked it for conquest. Morris walked to the center of the bridge where a large holographic map showed their target: Zalidus Prime, the home world of the Empire. Its 3 moons glowed like small gems around the large green and blue planet. "The element of surprise is our best weapon," said Grayson, studying the map. "They never expect their targets to strike first." "Because no one ever has," replied Morris. "According to our data, they've conquered 57 worlds in the last century alone. Not one fought back effectively." "Humans are different," Grayson said simply. Morris nodded. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves many times throughout history. But they had survived, learned, grown stronger. When the first alien signals were detected 15 years ago, Earth's nations had done something unexpected. They united. "Captain, Admiral," called Communications Officer Peter Bell from his station. "I'm picking up Zalidian communications. Our translation software is working perfectly. They're discussing routine patrol schedules, no sign they know we're coming." "Keep listening," ordered Grayson. "I want to know the moment anything changes." The hours passed slowly. The crew checked and rechecked their systems. Some wrote messages to loved ones back home. Others sat quietly, lost in thought. All knew what was at stake. Everything. Lieutenant Ward's voice broke the silence. 1 hour to arrival point, Captain." Morris pressed a button on the arm of his chair. All hands prepare for battle stations in 45 minutes. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, crew members moved with purpose. In the weapons room, Chief Gunner Lisa Powell supervised the final checks on the ship's main cannon. Power levels stable, reported one of her team. All weapon systems responding normally. Good, said Powell. Remember your training. We hit, hard and fast if given the order. In the medical bay, Dr. Ethan Clark prepared his team for possible casualties. I hope we don't fire a single shot, he told his head nurse. But hope isn't a strategy. Make sure all emergency stations are fully stocked. Back on the bridge, Morris and Grayson studied the latest data from their long-range scanners. Their home defense fleet includes 12 heavy destroyers, noted Morris, plus whatever they can call in from nearby systems, which is why we need to make our point quickly, replied Grayson, before reinforcements arrive. And if they don't back down? Grayson's face grew serious. Then we show them exactly what humans are capable of when threatened. 30 minutes to arrival, announced Ord. All ships in final position. Morris addressed the bridge crew. What we do today will be remembered as long as humans exist. We either secure our place among the stars or... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Message from Earth Central Command, reported Bell. Text only. It says, Godspeed. Defender. All of humanity stands with you. Send back. We will not fail, said Grayson. The bridge fell silent as the minutes ticked by. Morris felt his heart beating steadily in his chest. Fear was present, yes, but controlled. He had trained for this moment his entire career, though no one had ever expected first contact to be like this. Not with handshakes and peace talks, but with warships and ultimatums. 5 minutes to emergence, announced Ward, her fingers moving, across the navigation console. The blue swirl of hyperspace seemed to pulse more intensely around them. Morris nodded and turned to his crew. Battle stations. Throughout the ship, alarm lights flashed as crew members secured themselves at their posts. Weapon systems came fully online, shields rose to maximum power. All ships reporting ready, Captain, said Bell. Admiral Grayson confirms Operation Lighthouse is green. Morris took a deep breath. Humanity's future would be determined in the next few hours. Bring us out of hyperspace. The swirling blue light outside the ship suddenly snapped away, replaced by the blackness of normal space dotted with stars. Directly ahead, the green and blue world of Zelitus Prime hung like a jewel in space. Their fleet had emerged in perfect formation, 30 Earth warships in an arrow pattern, pointing directly at the heart of the alien capital. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the space around them lit up as defense systems activated. Commander Kate Winters at Tactical reported, "They're scrambling fighters, orbital platforms powering weapon systems." "They're surprised," noted Grayson with satisfaction. "Good. Broadcast." "The message on all frequencies," Morris ordered. "Let's make our introduction." Bell's fingers flew over his console. "Broadcasting now, sir." The message, carefully crafted, translated into the Zelidian language and designed to demonstrate both strength and restraint, began to transmit. The die was cast. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not with a whisper, but with a show of force that no one, not even the mighty Zelidian Empire, could ignore. Grand Emperor Zethar stood frozen before the massive holographic display in the Imperial Command Center. The large room, with its high ceiling and golden walls, had never been so quiet. The Emperor's forearms trembled slightly, something that had not happened since he was a young ruler 200 years ago. "Impossible," he whispered, his voice barely audible even in the silent room. His green skin seemed to pale as he stared at the display. The mandibles at the sides of his mouth clicked rapidly, a clear sign of distress. "They are from an uncontacted world. How did they reach us? How do they have this technology?" The 20 advisors and military leaders in the room remained silent, equally stunned by what they saw. 30 alien ships, arranged in perfect formation, hovering just beyond their defense grid. The ships were unlike any they had seen before. Sleek, dark and clearly built for war. Finally, High General Vosk stepped forward. The old warrior's face bore scars from 100 battles, but even he looked shaken. "Your Eminence," Vosk said, his deep voice breaking the heavy silence. "These humans. They've positioned themselves in a very unusual way. They are within our kill zone, but also perfectly situated to fire upon the capital. It's a formation we've never encountered, both defensive and aggressively offensive." "Can we destroy them?" demanded the Emperor, his upper hands curling into fists. Vosk hesitated. "We are not certain, Your Eminence. Our scans cannot penetrate. They're shields. The technology is unknown to us. They appear to have weapons ports, but of what type or power we cannot say." The Emperor turned to his science minister, a thin figure with oversized eyes. "Explain this. How could an uncontacted species develop such technology without our knowledge?" The science minister bowed low. "We have no explanation, Great One. According to our records, their world, they call it Earth, was still using chemical rockets. Just 70 years ago, their progress is unprecedented." A younger officer rushed into the room and whispered something to Vosk. The general's eyes widened. "What is it?" snapped the Emperor. "Your Eminence, the humans knew exactly where to emerge from hyperspace. They appeared directly above the capital, avoiding all our outer system detection arrays. Such precision requires detailed knowledge of our star system." "They have been watching us," realized the Emperor. His lower arms gripped the rail before him so tightly that the metal bent. "Spying on us, while we thought them primitive." The Imperial Communications Minister, a female with elaborate head ridges, approached cautiously and bowed. "Great Emperor, we're receiving a transmission from their fleet. They're broadcasting in perfect Imperial Standard." The room fell silent again. Imperial Standard was a complex language with 86 distinct sounds and precise tonal requirements. For aliens to master it required either years of study or very advanced translation technology. "How could they possibly know our language?" demanded the Emperor. "Unknown, Your Eminence," replied the Communications Minister, her head still bowed. "Their message states they are aware of our plans to invade their system, and they have come to negotiate from a position of mutual respect." The Emperor's eyes narrowed to slits. "Play the message. Full projection." The Communications Minister pressed a series of buttons on her wrist device. The center of the room cleared as guards and advisors stepped back. A beam of light shot down from the ceiling, forming into the image of a human female in a formal uniform. She stood straight, her face calm but firm. "I am Admiral Olivia Grayson of Earth's United Defense Fleet," the human said. Her voice was clear and strong. "We know the Zelidian Empire has targeted our world for conquest. We have chosen to save you the journey." Several advisors gasped at the boldness of the statement. The Emperor remained still, watching. "We come not to wage war but to prevent one," continued Admiral Grayson. "Our terms are simple. Recognize Earth as a sovereign power and establish diplomatic relations, or witness capabilities we would prefer not to demonstrate. You have one standard rotation to respond." The recording ended, leaving the Imperial Court. In stunned silence, for several moments no one dared to speak. Then the Emperor turned to his war council. "Opinions?" "It must be a bluff," said one general, a burly figure with a cybernetic eye. "No first contact species could possibly threaten the Empire. Their ships may look impressive, but they cannot know our true strength." "I agree," said another. "They likely have only these 30 ships. Our fleets number in the thousands." High General Vosk looked less certain. "Perhaps, but their knowledge of our language, their ability to bypass our early detection systems, and the technology that blocks our scans, these are not the actions of a primitive species making bold claims." The Emperor moved to a smaller display showing the human fleet. "Scan those ships again. I want to know their capabilities." The science minister tapped rapidly on his console. After a minute, he shook his head. "Our scans, they can't penetrate their shields. The technology appears to absorb our scanning, beams rather than reflect them. We've never encountered this before." What about their weapon systems? We can see what appear to be weapon ports but cannot determine their nature or power. The Emperor hissed softly, a sound rarely heard in the palace. Send a message to all nearby fleets. I want reinforcements here within 12 hours. Already. Done, Your Eminence, said Vosk. 3 battle groups are on their way. The closest is 5 hours out. Good. The Emperor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. We will stall these humans, respond to their message. Tell them we need time to assemble our diplomatic team. That should give our reinforcements time to arrive. And then? Asked Vosk. And then we will show these presumptuous creatures what happens to those who threaten the Zelidian Empire. The Emperor turned to his personal guard. Double the palace security, and move my family to the deep bunker. Is that necessary, Your Eminence? Asked the head of the guard. Do it, ordered the Emperor. For the first time in his long reign, he felt something close to fear. He would not admit it to his court, but these humans worried him. They had done the impossible, reached the heart of the Empire without detection. What else might they be capable of? In the hours that followed, the Imperial Palace buzzed with activity. Messengers rushed between departments. Military ships in orbit repositioned themselves. Civilian traffic was cleared from the skies above the capital. Down in the city, word spread quickly. Citizens looked up at the sky with worry, though the alien ships were too far above to be seen with the naked eye. Street vendors closed early. Parents called their children home. The normally busy markets grew quiet. In a secret chamber beneath the palace, the Emperor met with his most trusted advisors. What do they really want? Asked Vosk. If they knew we planned to invade their world, why not simply fortify it? Why? Come here. To make a point, said the Emperor. They wanted us to know they could reach us. It is a bold strategy. The intelligence minister, a shadowy figure who rarely spoke at court, cleared his throat. We have been reviewing our records, Your Eminence. 3 of our long-range scout ships disappeared in the sector containing their world over the past 5 years. We thought it was due to natural phenomena. They captured our scouts, realized the Emperor, studied our technology, learned our languages. It would explain much, agreed the intelligence minister. The Emperor turned to a window, showing the night sky above the capital. Somewhere up there, alien ships waited. In all our history, no species has ever approached us this way, he said quietly. Always, we discover them. Always, we set the terms. What shall we do, Your Eminence? Asked Vosk. The Emperor's 4 hands clasped behind his back. We wait for our reinforcements. We learn what we can about these humans. And then, when we are ready, we crush them so thoroughly that no other species will ever dare follow their example. But despite his confident words, for the first time in centuries, a shadow of doubt had entered the heart of the Imperial Palace. These humans were different. And difference, in the carefully controlled Zelidian Empire, was dangerous. 20 hours had passed since the human fleet arrived above Zalidus Prime. Inside the Defender, the mood was tense but controlled. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the alien communications and movements around the planet. Captain Alan Morris studied the tactical display showing dozens of Zelidian ships taking positions around their fleet. The aliens were being careful, staying just outside weapons range, but their intentions were clear. They were preparing for battle. They're stalling, Admiral Grayson said as she walked onto the bridge. She had changed into a fresh uniform, but the dark circles under her eyes showed she had slept little. Status report? 3 Zelidian battle groups have arrived in the last 4 hours, Morris replied, pointing to clusters of red dots on the display. Their reinforcements now outnumber us 5-1. Grayson nodded calmly. Exactly as our intelligence predicted. They don't believe we're truly a threat. We've received 3 messages asking for more time to assemble their diplomatic team, added Communications Officer Bell from his station. Each one nearly identical to the last. And the Imperial Palace? Asked Grayson. Our sensors show increased activity. They've moved their defense shields to maximum and evacuated several areas of the city below, reported Commander Kate Winters from Tactical. They're preparing for a fight. Grayson checked her watch. Our deadline passed 20 minutes ago. Time for the demonstration. She turned to Morris. Captain, signal the Excalibur. Morris nodded and pressed a button on his chair. Excalibur, this is Defender. Admiral Grayson has authorized Operation Lighthouse. Proceed with the demonstration. On the small escort vessel Excalibur, Commander Jack Rivera acknowledged the order. His ship, the smallest in the human fleet at just 100 meters long, had been chosen deliberately for what would follow. Small size in the minds of the Xylidians meant insignificance. That assumption would soon be challenged. Order received, Captain, Rivera replied, his voice steady. Beginning final preparations now. Rivera turned to his crew of 30 men and women. They had trained for this moment for 2 years. Each knew their role perfectly. Each understood what was at stake. Weapons Officer Foster. Status report, Rivera called. Lieutenant Diane Foster's fingers moved quickly over her console. Her face, usually cheerful, was now serious and focused. Targeting systems locked on the fourth moon, sir. All safety protocols disengaged. The fourth moon of Xalidus Prime was a barren rock, roughly 1,500 kilometers in diameter. It contained no permanent settlements, only automated mining operations and some scientific equipment. Human intelligence had confirmed this repeatedly. No lives would be lost in what was to come. Engineering status of the Singularity device? Rivera asked. All systems green, Commander, replied Chief Engineer Greg Watson from the engine room. Power levels stable. The device is ready. Rivera took a deep breath. The Singularity device represented mankind's greatest scientific achievement and its most terrifying weapon. Developed in secret over 15 years, it had been tested only twice before, on remote asteroids in Earth's own system. What it could do still seemed impossible, even to those who understood the science behind it. All personnel clear of the test chamber, reported Foster after checking her monitor. Singularity device is armed and ready. Across the human fleet, crews watched their screens in silence. Some said quiet prayers. Others simply held their breath. Every human present knew this moment would change the course of history. Execute, Rivera commanded. Foster pressed a series of keys on her console, each requiring separate authorization codes. A soft hum built throughout the small ship as power flowed to the device housed in its protected core. Device activated, Foster announced. Launching in 3, 2, 1. From the seemingly insignificant human vessel, a small projectile, no, larger than a coffee cup, launched silently toward the fourth moon of Xalidus Prime. It moved slowly at first, then accelerated to half the speed of light, becoming invisible to the naked eye. On the tactical screens throughout the fleet, they watched the tiny dot approach the gray moon. The projectile impacted silently on the surface, disappearing into the rocky ground. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Did it fail? Someone whispered on the Defender's bridge. Then, reality itself seemed to warp around the moon. The surface began to crack, not with explosions pushing outward, but as if being pulled inward by an unstoppable force. Mountains collapsed, canyons closed. The entire moon, a celestial body nearly 1,500 kilometers in diameter, began to fold in on itself, as if being devoured from within. The process accelerated. What began slowly became faster and faster. The moon compressed smaller and smaller. Within 30 seconds, a body that had orbited Xalidus Prime for billions of years had collapsed to a point, leaving nothing but empty space where it had been. A perfect demonstration. On the screens of the human ships, they could see the Xylidian vessels reacting in panic. Some broke formation. Others fired their engines at full power, moving away from the human fleet. Several simply froze in position, as if their crews couldn't decide what to do. Play the second message, ordered Grayson. Her face showed no joy at the demonstration's success, only grim determination. Bell nodded and sent the prepared transmission to the Imperial Palace and all Xylidian ships. The message was simple. People of the Xylidian Empire, you have witnessed a fraction of humanity's defensive capabilities. We have no desire to use such measures against living worlds. Our terms remain unchanged. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign power and the establishment of diplomatic relations. We await your response. For several long minutes there was no reply from the Xalidians. The silence stretched uncomfortably across the bridge of the Defender. "Admiral," called Bell suddenly, "we're receiving a direct transmission from the Imperial Palace. It's the Emperor himself, requesting to speak with you." Grayson straightened her uniform jacket. "Put him through." The main screen on the bridge flickered, then showed the face of Emperor Zithar. The alien ruler's green skin had paled to a sickly gray. His 4 arms were perfectly still at his sides, a controlled posture that took visible effort. "Admiral Grayson of Earth," the Emperor said, his voice formal but strained. "The Xalidian Empire requests an immediate cessation of hostilities and proposes a diplomatic meeting to discuss your terms." Grayson's expression remained neutral. "We accept your proposal, Emperor Zithar. We will send a shuttle to the coordinates of your choosing for initial discussions." "That will not be necessary," replied the Emperor, surprising everyone on the bridge. "I will come to you." The screen went dark. The bridge crew looked at each other in amazement. "Did he just say he's coming here?" asked Morris, unable to hide his shock. "According to our intelligence, no Xalidian Emperor has ever boarded an alien vessel." "Times change," said Grayson with a small smile, "especially when a moon disappears." She turned to the crew. "Prepare for an Imperial visit. It seems diplomacy has suddenly become very important to the Xalidian Empire." As word spread through the human fleet, a mixture of relief and pride filled the ships. They had gambled everything on this mission: the fate of Earth, the future of humanity. The gamble appeared to be paying off. On the Excalibur, Commander Rivera stared at the empty space where the moon had been. The power they had unleashed was terrifying even to him. But it had worked. The Xalidian Empire, with its thousands of ships and hundreds of conquered worlds, had been brought to the negotiating table without a single human casualty. "Was it really the only way?" asked Foster quietly, standing beside him. Rivera considered the question seriously. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know that throughout history, peace through strength has often been the only language that empires understand." As they prepared to receive the Emperor of the most powerful civilization in this part of the galaxy, every human felt the weight of what they had done and what would come next. They had changed the balance of power in an instant. The hard part, building a lasting peace, was just beginning. The human crew of the Defender stood at attention in the main docking bay. The large metal doors slid open slowly, revealing a Xalidian shuttle that had just landed. Captain Morris glanced at Admiral Grayson, who stood perfectly straight beside him. Her face showed no emotion, but he knew how important this moment was. "Remember," Grayson said quietly to the welcome team, "show respect but no fear. We are equals here." The shuttle door opened with a hiss of air. 2 tall Xalidian guards stepped out first, their ceremonial armor gleaming under the bright lights of the docking bay. They carried no visible weapons, a sign of good faith. Then Emperor Zithar himself appeared in the doorway. In person, the Emperor was even more impressive than in the video transmissions. He stood over 7 feet tall, his green skin decorated with the royal markings of his family line. His forearms were adorned with golden bands showing his many titles and achievements. His large eyes scanned the human delegation carefully. "Welcome aboard the Defender, Emperor Zithar," said Admiral Grayson, stepping forward and giving a small bow, exactly the right amount to show respect without submitting. "I am Admiral Olivia Grayson of Earth's United Defense Fleet." The Emperor returned the bow, surprising his own guards. "Admiral Grayson, your demonstration has made a strong impression." "That was our hope," Grayson replied. "Please, follow me to our conference room where we can discuss terms in comfort." As they walked through the corridors of the ship, human crew members stopped and stood at attention. The Emperor noticed everything: the clean hallways, the advanced technology, the discipline of the crew. Morris could almost see the alien ruler's mind working, evaluating, reassessing everything he thought he knew about humans. The conference room was large, with a round table in the center, a deliberate choice to show equality rather than using a rectangular table with clear head positions. Large windows showed the curve of Xalidus Prime below and the stars beyond. Once everyone was seated, Grayson began. Emperor Zithar, we appreciate your willingness to meet in person. It shows wisdom and courage. One does not rule an empire for 2 centuries without learning when to fight and when to talk, replied the emperor. His voice was deep and surprisingly smooth. Your species has earned the right to be heard. Over the next 6 hours, they discussed the terms of what would be called the Treaty of Earth. Human diplomats and legal experts joined by video link from Earth. Xylidian ministers arrived from the planet below. The discussions were sometimes tense, sometimes surprisingly cooperative. By the time the final draft was ready, 7 days had passed. The treaty was to be signed in orbit above Xalidus Prime, aboard the Defender. It would be the first time in Tibetor recorded history that a Xylidian emperor signed a treaty on an alien vessel. On the day of the signing, the Defender's largest room had been transformed. A long table stood in the center, with the treaty displayed on ancient paper, a human touch that impressed the Xylidians, who valued physical objects over digital ones. Emperor Zithar arrived with a small group of his highest ministers. Admiral Grayson welcomed them, along with Captain Morris and key members of the human delegation. Before we begin, said the Emperor, I would ask one question, Admiral. Your fleet that arrived in our system, is it truly all the ships you have? Grayson's face revealed nothing as she replied, You understand, of course, that we deployed only a fraction of our fleet. The rest remains defending Earth. It was a perfect bluff. There were no additional ships, but the Emperor's eyes widened slightly. The humans had correctly guessed that Xylidians respected strength above all else. The treaty would hold better if they believed Earth had even more forces in reserve. Your species is most unexpected, Zithar admitted as he picked up the pen to sign. In 3,000 years of Imperial history, no civilization has ever approached us as equals during first contact. Perhaps that's been the problem all along, Grayson suggested. Equality must be the foundation of any lasting peace. The Emperor considered this, then nodded slowly. An interesting perspective, one that deserves consideration. With careful movements, he signed his name using all 4 hands at once, a special technique reserved for the most important imperial documents. Admiral Grayson signed next, her simple human signature looking strange beside the elaborate Xylidian mark. It is done, said the Emperor, placing the pen down. The Xylidian Empire recognizes Earth as a sovereign power. A demilitarized zone will be established between our territories. Trade will begin within the month. Cultural exchanges will follow. And the imperial expansion policy? Asked Grayson pointedly. Will be suspended pending review, confirmed the Emperor, though Morris noticed he seemed less enthusiastic about this point. As agreed. As the formal ceremony ended and the Emperor prepared to depart, Captain Morris joined Grayson at the large viewport overlooking the planet below. Will it last? He asked quietly, watching the Imperial shuttle return to the palace. They've been conquering worlds for thousands of years. Can a treaty really change that? Fear alone won't sustain peace, Grayson acknowledged, her voice low so only Morris could hear. But it buys us time to build something better. According to our intelligence reports, several subject species within the Empire are already requesting greater freedom, citing the Earth model as they call it. And the weapon? Morris asked even more quietly. How many more moons can we actually make disappear? Grayson's expression turned solemn. None. It was a single-use prototype. We've just gambled the future of humanity on an empty holster. Morris stared at her in shock. You mean if they had called our bluff? Earth would be facing an Imperial invasion fleet right now, Grayson finished. But they didn't, because we understood something important about empires. They respect boldness almost as much as they respect strength. Morris let out a slow breath. That was a huge risk. The biggest, agreed Grayson. But as my grandmother used to say, sometimes the appearance of strength is enough to prevent a fight. In the days that followed, the human fleet prepared to return home. Engineers checked engines, navigators plotted the hyperspace route, and crew members sent messages to their families back on Earth. Most were simply happy to be going home alive. On the final day in orbit around Zalida's prime, Captain Morris received an unexpected message. A small Zalidian transport was requesting permission to dock. Inside was a gift from Emperor Zithar himself, a rare crystal map showing the safe hyperspace routes through this sector of the galaxy. Such maps were never given to outsiders. The Saitikai message accompanying it was brief but significant. For our equals among the stars. As news of the encounter spread throughout the galaxy, many things began to change. For the first time in millennia, the mighty Zalidian Empire had met a power it could not simply conquer. The balance of power had shifted. On dozens of worlds under imperial control, local leaders began to speak more boldly about self-rule. On hundreds more, the story of the humans who faced down an empire became a whispered tale of hope. Even some members of the imperial court began to question whether constant expansion was the only path forward. 6 months after returning to Earth, Admiral Grayson received a secure transmission from one of their covert observation posts near Zalidian space. 3 previously conquered worlds had been granted limited autonomy. The Imperial war fleet had decreased in size by 15%. Trade routes were opening that had been closed for centuries. "It's working better than we hoped," she told Morris when he visited her office. "One show of strength, one bluff, and we've changed the course of an entire empire." Morris nodded thoughtfully. "For now. But we should keep building actual ships just in case they ever discover our singularity device was one of a kind." "Already happening," Grayson assured him. "The first 10 new ships launch next month, but I'm hoping we never need to use them in battle." As their conversation ended, Grayson walked to her window and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, an empire that had known only conquest for thousands of years was learning about coexistence. Dozens of species that had known only submission were beginning to hope for freedom. The humans had arrived with their fleet, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. End of story.